How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to the Battlefield of the Mind. I'm here with Paul Levitin. And if you guys haven't heard yet, Paul, you've got a podcast and you've been helping people and you've got a lot of credentials. But let's get into some of your stuff. How do people listen to you? Who the heck are you? And do all the Paul stuff.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me here and everyone listening. I appreciate the ears and the time. My name is Paul Levitin. My podcast is called Happy, Healthy Human, and I've been podcasting for about 3 years. I have a coaching company where I help people one-on-one as well as with group courses all around exactly that. How do we be happier, healthier humans? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And yet the simplest things are often the most complicated when we dig into them. So that's the stuff that's super interesting to me, is how do we help people change and how do we help people live a higher quality of life?
Yeah, change is hard, man. All right, I get into the change conversation often. Why the heck is change so hard for people, Paul?
That's the $1 billion question right there, isn't it? And that's the long and short of it right there, is change is hard, right? And that's the number one thing that we have to start at. It's like people will get into any pursuit. That's what we have to realize. Everything is change, right? And the reason that it's so hard is because it's change, right? And if that sounds kind of convoluted, I'll kind of break it down a bit. Humans are animals, right? Again, my podcast, Happy, Healthy Human, is the last word because we're humans, but humans are at our base level animals, and animals are living, and all life operates on the same principles and the same precepts. And that is that we have to survive. Survival is the number one thing that all life, from the smallest little amoeba up to apes and dogs and humans, are trying to do, is just to survive. And that means that everything that we do runs through a simple kind of software in our brain. Will this take me closer to or farther from survival? So everything that we do is running through that software, running through that lens. And change inherently is always going to be in the latter, take us farther from survival, because change takes more energy, right? So doing what we've already done, maintaining the status quo, doing what's already happening takes less energy than change. If I'm already sitting, it takes less energy than standing up. Staying at the job that I'm already at, rather than becoming an entrepreneur, takes less energy. So whatever the thing is, change hinges on, I have to inherently spend more energy. And my brain is always looking for ways to save energy. So those two things are inherently at odds. Everything that my brain wants to do is save energy, stay the same, stay where it's safe, right? If we take this back to evolutionary terms, it's stay inside the cave. The cave has fire, the cave is safe. Outside of the cave, everything is dangerous. That's where snakes will attack me. That's where lions will attack me. But we'll also starve to death if we stay inside the cave. So if you stay safe for too long, it brings its own struggles, but that comes later, right? Starving to death happens 3 weeks from now, a month from now. Staying safe happens right now. And that software is always running in the background whenever we try to make a decision. Most of the time, this is subconscious, right? So when I have Netflix saying, hey, would you like to watch another episode? And I know in my head, I should, quote unquote, should go to the gym. I've said that I want to work out. I've said that I want to email my list or do whatever else, right? This isn't just about fitness. This is everything in life. But I'm already doing the thing, and doing the thing is so much easier than not doing the thing, than changing. And that's always what everything boils down to. So at a zoomed out high level view, all change is functioning on that. All change is trying to get me to do something that I'm not already doing. And that always is inherently going to be hard. And it's something that our brain doesn't like. So that is what we're struggling with no matter what. And then the specifics of the change just make it more complicated.
Thanks for making that so simple for us, Paul. I'm just kidding. I got a simple thing for you on this one. Tell me your thoughts. I actually really enjoy just how our language and words is how we try to communicate, and how these words mean so many things to each different person. And so I liked how you said, okay, as animals and all living things, our core base piece is like survive. We have to make sure we don't die. If we die, all the other things that we want to do, like reproduce or, pleasure or any of the things that we would do, progress, purpose, all of that doesn't matter if you die. So we have to not die first, right? So rule number one, don't die. But then it gets into the change part. With change, I think the reason that change is so hard is because change is associated to loss. What was isn't anymore. Even if what was bad, it's not like that anymore. And so, like, if you got, like you said, the new job or working a job versus entrepreneurship, or even if you got a new job that's better, like better pay, better hours, better environment, better culture, it's better. But now when you leave to go to work, you turn right instead of turn left where your old job was at. You're like, well, that change is different. I don't see the same people anymore. I don't do the same things that I used to do. And so you're like, now that difference has made it so that I'm associating losing. This is why people lean into that comfort, lean in towards that thing. What do you think?
Yeah, it's 100%. It's about loss, but more than that, it's kind of what you just said about it's being different, right? So it's not about a positive or a negative so much as it is about the fact that it's not what I already know. Humans are pattern recognition machines, right? That's why we have habits, because habits, everything comes back to, again, survival, like you just said. The reason we have habits and why things become quote unquote habitualized is because it's an energy saving device, right? If I know that every day I wake up, put my slippers on, go to the coffee machine, make my coffee, whatever it is, and my brain realizes that that's the thing I'm going to do over and over and over, it'll put me on autopilot during that time. So I'm not consciously thinking, okay, turn left, put right foot in slipper, put left foot in slipper. It makes us go through the motions so that we can save energy. But to do that, we are always looking for patterns. We are always looking for things that seem familiar. And things that seem familiar seem safe because I already know them. And anything that is unfamiliar is inherently not safe. So anything that is a change that is different than what I'm used to feels like it is something that I have to worry about more. I have to spend more mental energy on it and I have to think about it more. So inherently, even if it's a good change, it's still uncomfortable because it's not what I'm used to. It's not what I know. It's not what's familiar.
What do you think about people who are risk adverse? Like people are like, we just go right in. I don't care. Let's do it. Do you think that like it's an energy thing there, or there's maybe a screw loose? What do you think?
I just think that as much as I'm talking about everyone, all things, all humans, we all exist on a bell curve for everything, right? And the bell curve is most people will be average. Some people will be on the left side of the curve. Some people will be on the right side of the curve. So when I talk like this in these grand sweeping generalizations, there are always going to be people who don't fall into these buckets, right? And everyone's going to go, well, it's so easy for X, Y, and Z. It's like, yeah, well, that person is just on the right side of the bell curve and they're lucky for that, right? Some people will be less risk averse and those are the people who are going to be the extreme sports people and they're going to go paragliding and hang sailing or whatever the hell else, right? And for some people, that's a great thing because they're going to jump into that entrepreneurial life and they're going to be the person who invests in Twitter earlier. They're going to be the person who starts their business and leaves their job. But a lot of those people also die. A lot of those people also go broke. So it's like we have to look at it for what it is. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just everyone is different. But when I'm looking to help someone, I'm always looking for the middle of the bell curve because what you can't do is talk to everyone. But what we can do is realize that most people are going to skew towards the middle for most things. So it's the same way with health and exercise, right? Like people, personal trainers, I was a personal trainer for a long time and I used to coach trainers on how to, build their business. And one thing I had to explain to a lot of new trainers is that you can't train your clients like you would train yourself. Because trainers would come in and they'd be like, well, I love working out, so they're going to love working out. It's like, no, these people hate working out. That's why they're hiring a trainer and they didn't become one, right? So most people don't enjoy exercise. People always say, well, like I have a friend who loves running. It's like, well, that person is sick in the head. If someone tells me they love running 100 miles, they love doing ultra marathons, they're something in their body that enjoys pain, and a place that most people, 99 out of 100 people, will not enjoy that situation, but they're the 1 out of 100 who does. Doesn't make them any better or worse. It's just a difference in the way that some people are. So, again, you can lean into it. If you have a thing that you have an addictive personality and your addiction is exercise, it might be a good thing, right? It might be the best thing you could get addicted to, but it's still an addiction at the end of the day. So it's not, again, like that, okay, like these people have a screw loose or something. It's just that like where it shook out for them, we all roll the dice and where the dice lands for us is going to be different. And for some people, that dice lands in the right way where it's like the thing that you are more keen to ends up being a net positive rather than a net negative.
You said words like lucky or even like meant like the roll of the dice. Do you believe that it's a lot more like this nature thing is more like it's not trained, it's just that's how it is? And like, or is it a trained thing and people can go, oh, I want to do a thing, but it's way out of my energy comfort zone. And so you mentioned save energy versus the idea of, well, if I do more exercise, I'll have more energy. Like, is it an abundance idea, a scarcity idea? There's a couple of things here. I'm wondering, is this natural or can it be broken? Can it be beaten?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the whole nature versus nurture thing. And it's a combination of both, right? Anything can be nurtured out, right? Anything can be broken, right? So this is like the person who's the most overweight, the most obese, they can turn their life around, right? Like everyone has seen that story of the guy who was 800 pounds, who lost 600, and now he's a trainer himself and he runs marathons. But the point is that person, it's probably harder for them than it is for you or me, right? So like that's where luck comes into it. It's not that luck makes it possible or impossible. It's that luck makes it how easy is it, right? So, again, using myself as an example, people would, when I was a trainer, people might look at me and like one of my clients be like, well, I just want to look like you. And it's like, but you can't look like me. I'm a trainer. I work at a gym. I work out 3 or 4 hours a day because I work at the gym, and my lifestyle is such that I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. This is my whole life. So again, you could call that luck. You can call it whatever it is, but the reality of my situation shook out in such a way that being where I was born, where I was raised, the job that I took straight out of college. I went to school for marketing and communications, but ended up becoming a personal trainer out of college. It just happened that way. Again, it's not to say that it's luck, but like because of that and the way all of that unfolded, when I was 25, 26, I was in a perfect position to have a ripped, chiseled athlete's body because I had spent the year since being 21, again, working at a gym. I didn't have that many clients. So I had 2-3 hours in between clients sometimes. So I would just work out all the time. Some people don't have that luxury. Some people are broke and have to go get a second job in that time. I had the luxury of living at home with my mom when in my early 20s and being able to be supported while I got my career up and going. So there's so many facets that go into this stuff. Like we want to look at it just like, well, he tried hard and he succeeded. It's not that simple. It's never that simple. There are infinite inputs that go into any one thing, right? So again, using addiction as an example, like I did lots of drinking, lots of drugs, lots of things that weren't good for me in that time frame too. I was lucky in that I don't have an addictive personality or an addictive body where the chemicals in my brain don't latch onto something. I could do cocaine and then never do it again. I could do the pills and then be like, wow, I actually didn't like that. Some people do it one time and the rest of their life, or the next 10 years of their life, get flushed down the drain. So to say that's anything but luck is just like, it would just be silly. Now, again, you can then take the luck that you were given and then what you choose to do with it is important, and how hard you work is still important as well. It's not all luck. It's not either or, but we have to admit that when someone is in a good situation, they could have worked as hard as they can, but there's plenty of people who are working harder than them who are not in that situation, right? Like you can look at someone like whatever person built whatever giant company, Elon Musk or whatever. He worked super hard. He slept on his couch. He did all this. And it's like, and there's 1,000 other people who are sleeping on their couch, who are working 10 times harder than him. And they're not billionaires. They're not even thousandaires. They're actually broke. So there's a luck aspect that plays into all of this as well.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Warrior, thank you so much for being a part of the information that we have. And you're part of our story as we are a part of yours. It's very much an honor to be able to connect with each other. If you want to know more or you want to get started with working with me or working with our warriors so that you can begin your path to authenticity, strength, leadership, and accountability, this is the way. Together, we are way stronger. Now you get to choose. Do you go forward or keep doing what you've always done? If you stay where you're at, hey, click on some of the stuff and follow what it is. We got motivational stuff. We've got podcasts. We've got more things. Just subscribe and do the stuff and we'll keep you updated. But if you want to start going in, start jumping into what our programs offer and start your journey and being the hero in your own story.
All right. So when it comes down to training, like I need to hire you and we have this luck and chance versus, discipline or whatever, training or mindset or whatever it would be. What do people do if they're like, well, I'm not that lucky? Like they're like, well, fuck me, dude, I'm done. Like I don't got that luck. I guess I'm screwed. What do we do?
Right. So yeah, I mean, and that's like the natural question when I talk like this is just like, well, if everything's luck, like why even try? But that's not what I'm saying. The point is that that's just the starting off point, is you have to be open to reality. What I'm saying is it's just the truth. It's not like my opinion. It's not like, oh, okay, like Paul looks at it like that. That's just the truth. Everything is statistics, and some people skew left and some people skew right. Now, where you start on that scale is not up to you. Where you go from there is. So yes, you might be unlucky, right? You might be the person who can work out twice as hard and get half the results, right? Because everyone has that friend who goes, oh my God, he never works out. He does 2 crunches and then his 6-pack is popping out. And then you will go, well, I did his exact workout and I dieted exactly like him and I gained weight instead of losing it. That's just reality. That will happen. Now you take that and you go, okay, you got the shit end of the stick for that one, right? Your body does not respond to exercise in the same way that his does. Does that mean that you don't try? Of course not. Does that mean that you don't exercise? No, it means that you have to, unfortunately, work twice as hard for half the amount of results. That's just reality. It doesn't matter. It's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. It's not just. You're right. It's not. And neither is the light, neither is life, neither is the universe. So it's just one of those things. It's like, we just have to be open to accepting the reality, and then you get to play the game. Because what happens if you don't have this conversation first, and this is why I learned this, is people will start and they'll go, well, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I was supposed to lose 20 pounds. The coach I hired said if I followed this exact plan, I'd lose 20 pounds in 1 month, and I only lost 6 pounds. And it's like, well, that's just reality. It's not fair. It's not just. It's not anything, but it is what it is. So now you have a choice. Okay, you lost 6 pounds in a month. Do you give up, or do you give it 3 more months to get to that 20 pounds? Because that's what it's going to take for you. And it's the same thing with money. It's the same thing with relationships. It's the same thing. We can have guidelines. We can have structures. We can have routines that we can follow, but we don't get to choose what the result is or the speed with which it comes. Right? Working out works for everyone. Everyone will get stronger. You will get better. You will be healthier if you commit to an exercise routine. But the speed with which you receive those results are 100% out of your hands. Now, there's variables we can play with. How intense am I working out? How often am I working out? Yada, 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 of course. But my point is that you don't get to say, hey, I'm going to do this for 6 months, and in 6 months, I'm going to look like this. And if you have that thought in your head, you're going to set yourself up for failure, because you're going to look at it and you're going to go, well, this isn't fair. I did my part. I tried, and it didn't work out like it was supposed to. But there is no supposed to. Nothing should be. We only have the reality of what is. And if you can live your life like that, you can keep trying. Eventually you'll get there, but it won't be in the time frame that you initially thought it was.
You threw a lot of things in here to try to go directions in. People talk about radical acceptance or radical truth, or this is just the truth, or this is just reality. But then it gets into the concept of, if we're going to agree that this is truth and this is reality, well, what if I was like, well, I don't know what truth even is then? What is truth for me to agree or disagree? Is it luck? Is it training? Is it choice? Is it perception? Is it perspective? Like, what is truth then for me to go, well, Paul is obviously correct. He speaks in what he says is truths, or he speaks in absolutes, and so it must be so. He sounds very confident. But what is truth for me to make sure I'm at least in the right realm of acceptance?
Yeah, I mean, so for one thing, it's exactly right. This is why it's so confusing, because most things are shades of gray. We want, again, as humans, we want the answer to be one way. We want it to be all or nothing, black or white, left or right, yes or no. Almost always, it's a middle ground. It's in between. This goes back to exactly what I was saying in the beginning, energy saving. The reason our brain is always looking for a one yes or no answer, a binary answer, is because then it's done, it's over, I can save more energy. But it's hardly ever like that. But to your question about what is truth, truth is what is. Like, what is. I'm sitting right here talking to you. What could be in the future, what was in the past, like the only truth is what we can see, hear, feel, and even barely that, because, you know, what, again, we can get into the metaphysical about what is real and whatever else is like that. It can get super like trippy, I understand, but that's the point. It's like, what can you control? I can control my actions. I can control my thoughts. I can control my words. I know I can't control what happens with my business, right? Like, I can put in the 8-hour days, 10-hour days, 12-hour days on my business, and theoretically that should lead to me finding some level of success, but it's not guaranteed. And again, a lot of people will do that and not find success. I can diet and exercise and do all of the things, and I should achieve a certain level of physique theoretically, but there's plenty of people who don't. So once you understand that, all you can control is what you can control, and that's usually start and ends with you. And even that is like tentative, because we can control our thoughts, but we all have intrusive thoughts that we don't want, that sometimes they take over. We can control our words, except when we misspeak. You hear me fumbling over my words a lot right now. We can control our body, but I can't will my heart rate up or down, and I can't will my muscles bigger. So there's very little in this world or in this life that we can control. And that's, again, that's not just like a theory. It's just, how can you prove it? Prove it wrong, right? Like try to control something with your mind that is outside of your mind, and you'll see very quickly that it just isn't that way. So again, like, I'm just talking about what are the rules of the universe. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. There's gravity. These are things that we cannot change. Other than that, pretty much everything is up for interpretation, and it falls somewhere in the middle ground of however we choose to look at it.
Right. So then truth would be interpretation, or is it control? Because like even gravity as a law, for example, when Isaac Newton got hit in the head with an apple, the truth was apples get pulled down. We're pulled down. And they're like, seems plausible, dude. Seems like the truth. And so Isaac Newton, he was right, until this old Einstein guy came along with all of his numbers and physics. And he's like, let's math it out. And he's like, actually, gravity is pushing us down, not pulling us down. It's different. The math comes out this way. And they go, new information. Now that's the truth. Until something comes along and goes, no, actually, Einstein, it's this. And then that's the truth. So then is truth really just our interpretation, or what we understand based on our experiences and exposure? So that way truth then is simply subjective, or is it actually objective?
Well, when I'm talking about that's a great point. I love the Einstein bit, and to me it's about, when I say truth, I'm talking about the laws of the universe, right? And again, these things do change, because what we thought was a law 100 years ago is no longer a law now. So but again, if you get too far out into the weeds like that, you're getting away from the answer, right? I'm trying to get people closer to what is helpful in this scenario. So yes, you're right. It could be that gravity right now is not what gravity will be, or be understood as 100 years or even a year from now. But for right now, we operate under these set parameters. And again, there's very few of them.
It would be acceptance then. So then truth is only what we agree on.
The truth is, yes, well, acceptance is a huge piece of it. And it's what we can agree on, but it's also what affects us with or without our acceptance, right? Like the truth to me is, these are the things that no matter what, if I want them to be or don't want them to be, I can't change. That's how I would break it down, right? So again, I could say I want to invest my money to grow into a wealthy nest egg in 50 years so I can retire. But the truth is that the stock market doesn't care about what I want. And I can invest my money, and maybe it will go up and maybe it'll go down, or maybe I'll lose anything. I don't have control over that. That is the truth, because no amount of me wanting it to be another way, no amount of me kicking, screaming, no amount of me bribing any elected politicians or anything else can change that. That is what it is, at least for now. Maybe that will change in the future, but certain things
until you meet somebody who knows how to work that market, and then that market does become that.
Right.
And so what's the truth? The truth is you can't do that, or the truth is I just don't have the resources yet to do that.
Right. Well, the truth is that there are no set truths, right? Everything is up for interpretation eventually. But again, that's, like you said, that's down the road. What's the truth today, right? I can look at that.
The truth is just what I know to this point.
What I know to this point to be unavoidable. Right. That's yeah.
No, I mean, but even that changes as soon as I learn new things, and so then it becomes avoidable, because I didn't know that was there, but now I do, and so now the truth is it's avoidable.
Right. It's so
that means that's why I like these words. It's funny that we try and stay in reality or truth when reality based on what we know, and it's really difficult for us to coach people to say, this is what it really is. This is how far I can see based on what I've been through and what I've been exposed to. And all of us have been exposed to different experiences, different past, different training, and different beliefs to be able to say this is at least another perspective so we can combine to find a new truth. But the truth seems to be a constantly sliding scale because what is truth has become very convoluted because it changes based on who's looking at it.
Right. And you're 100% right. But the thing is that the way I look at it is like let's say life is like a board game, right?
Mm-hmm. Which one?
There are rules to the board game. Now, the truth would be that life isn't a board game, and there's people playing the board game, and then there's a dimension above the people who are there's a God who's controlling the people, and then there's a creator who created the God, and there's hundreds of infinite levels that we can't see. But all we can focus on is that we are in the game right now. So most people are on the chessboard and they don't know how to play chess, right? All I'm doing is being like, yes, there might be a bigger game at foot here, but what we can do for right now is become the best chess players possible. Yes, that's not saying that like someone can't come over and knock the whole board over, or someone can't change the rules of chess and make it a 4-person game instead of a 2-person game at any given point. That's all on the table. But being me, that I'm on the chessboard right now, I'm just a little pawn in this game. All I can focus on is telling the pawn next to me, hey, you can only move forward or back. I can whisper to the bishop behind me, hey, you can move, you move left and right as many squares as you want. That's the best option that I have. It's not saying that this chess game is everything. It's not saying that this is all that is. It's saying that there might be more, and there surely is more, but what I do, to the best of my knowledge at this point, has no and cannot affect it. So my best use of my time, my energy, and the breath in my lungs is to just talk to the pieces on the board and do what we can do.
So trying to pretty much try and navigate our control based on what we can perceive is the only option we have.
I mean, as far as I can tell, right? It's like, maybe not the only option, but to me, it's the best option. And especially when you look at what do most people do, which is the opposite, which is spend most of their time, energy, and attention, which are our truest resources in this life, trying to change things that they can't change, that they have no say over. And then they end up with being frustrated, burned out, overwhelmed, right? So it's like, it's just a binary decision to me, right? It's where do I want to spend my attention, my energy, my focus? These are my resources. And, where I spend them, that's up to me. And a lot of people, when you get to the root of where's your frustration coming from, it's like, well, I'm trying to do this and it's not working. It's like, because you can't change that. So what if you just took all that attention that you were putting towards that and put it towards something that you actually have some say over? And like that, we can slowly start to shift what we see, and then our truths change because our reality changes.
Well, our perception changes. This is why the first tool in the warrior's way is to learn awareness, because most of the things that we ask, like, for example, well, if you're supposed to do something like live your dreams, right? Or follow your heart, or what's your goal, or know your why. We know the memes, we know all the stuff, right? We know the answers, but it doesn't mean there's solutions. Most people don't have awareness. It's not a trained skill. This is why we have to train it. It's probably one of the most impactful things that we train. It's a skill. But how are you supposed to make a choice that you don't know exists? How are you supposed to know thyself when no one's ever said you should be looking at what you want? Which is probably one of the toughest questions, especially for men and most women. What do you want? And you're like, I don't know. I've always been told what to do. My reality and my truth is listen to my parents, listen to my teachers, listen to my coaches, listen to my bosses, listen to my spouses. If you're in the military, listen to my CO. Like, everybody's telling you what to do all the time. And then at some point you're responsible for well, make sure you take care of them and make sure you have what they need and make sure you're helping that person and make sure you're doing that. I've either been told what to do or helping people get what they need. How am I supposed to know what I want, to know myself well enough to catch my control, to catch what is true and what's not true? What is reality aside from a judgment? Because if perception is reality and truth, here I am now just running around with judgments that I don't know where they came from because I've never actually assessed myself at all. Well, doesn't this seem kind of confusing?
Yeah, it definitely is confusing. And that's why most people don't do it, right? Like this stuff, these are the deep questions. And there's a reason that there's this renaissance of these type of questions being asked and these type of conversations being had right now in the year 2023. It's because they're luxury. These are luxury questions that for the last 10,000 years of human existence, unless you were extremely well off or extremely lucky, again, fortunate, you didn't have the ability. Yes, there were philosophers. Yes, there were a small percentage of people who could sit and ponder on this stuff. But now we have achieved a level of existence. We have graduated out of the food chain. There's no chance of me starving. I'm on my lunch break right now from work. If they fired me, I still wouldn't starve to death. There would be a social net to catch me, and I would get assistance, or I could go to a food pantry or something like that. And because of that, I have the luxury of pondering these deeper questions, of having conversations like this, of sitting here for an hour with you and talking about what is real. This is the thing. It is a luxury. And, that's one of those things that it's hard for people, because you have to get the boot off your neck before you can even start pondering this stuff. If you're worried about survival, where's my next paycheck coming from? My knees hurt, my back hurts. The conversation about what is reality, you're just going to be like, get the fuck out of here. This does not mean anything to me. So it comes from a place of privilege to even have a conversation like that. I understand, but now that we are here, I think as a society, I do think it is important, because this is the next thing. This is why, again, we have gotten to a place where many people are making more money than they ever thought. How many people are being software engineers making $500,000 a year and still unhappy, right? People are entrepreneurs with $1 million business and committing suicide. So it's like, clearly all of these things about survival are not enough to fill up our cup in the way that it needs to be. So these deeper conversations, for better or for worse, even though they often bring more questions than they even bring answers, there's a reason all humans err towards this stuff. Why you can hear a conversation like this, you and I have never talked before, and we're just both sitting there shaking our heads yeah, kind of makes sense. It's confusing, but I get it, because this is just human stuff. And there's a point where it's like, you can, again, once you have the breath to be able to do it, once you have a little breathing room in terms of your quality of life, and you have food on the table, and you realize that I don't, if money is not the one and only thing that I need to chase in my life, what else can I be focusing on and shifting my attention to improve my quality of life? Then
that's a good question.
This, I think, is the natural next step.
Here's something for you. You mentioned a few things, and I want to answer that question. What should I be focusing on? What should I be doing? How do I get the boot off my neck? How do I do all the things, right? All right, let's go into, you said food chain. This is something I actually had Dr. Saperstein brought this up for me. What type of animal do you think we are? Are we a predator or a prey animal?
I think
Are humans predators or preys?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been, I guess, I would say in the middle of those things, right? We're hunters, but we also, again, if you're talking about human evolution, there was never a time, we were never the lion, the king of the jungle. There's always been animals that are bigger, stronger, faster, and could eat us at any given time. And that's a big part of our psyche, is that we're always scanning, right? Just like a gazelle is always scanning the perimeter, the periphery, because it might be eaten at any time. Humans are doing the same thing. Right? If you're looking at a field and a bird flies by or a rabbit runs across, your attention goes to that thing instantly. And that's trained into us for tens of thousands of years of evolution. Yes, we are hunters. Yes, we have learned to kill and hunt and eat what you kill, but you cannot take away the fact that, again, we are not the strongest animal on the planet. And again, if you don't respect that, not anymore, but for thousands and thousands of years, that was a big part of the reality that we lived in.
So are we a predator or a prey animal?
I mean, again, I think that it's a little bit of both. I would err on the side of predator, but there definitely are some things that could make us prey if we aren't careful.
So this is a misconception for many humans. What's the traits of a predator is going to be like the senses they have, the teeth they have, the claws they have, the units that they have. We have flat teeth. We don't have claws, and we are a frail animal. In fact, we're a prey animal just by design. We're not designed. Our brains are the only reason, because otherwise, if you had to race wolves to get to your car, you wouldn't be kicking ass. If you had to dodge a jaguar on the way to work, you wouldn't be doing as well as you think. We're not the toughest animal for sure. It's our big brains that have knocked us up out of the food chain. And so, we have that luxury that our societies or our cities or our technology has made it so that we don't have to dodge predators on the way to whatever our lifestyle is. Blessed as hell. Let's just call it what it is. We have eliminated predators. You don't have an actual lion to worry about in your neighborhood today. We're good. That's beautiful, right? It's a very cool thing. So when we're looking at this thing of predators and preys and our purpose and luxury and blessings and get the boot off, what should we be focusing on if we're a prey animal? Should we be trying to be solo hunters? self-indulging. It's all about me, money, 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 boss babe or boss bro, or trying to be the best of the best? Or are we technically a pack or herd animal and the isolated ones are getting picked off? What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we are herd animals, right? You mentioned before, we the whole thing, our teeth, our nails, we're not the best fighters. And it was our brain that allowed us to evolve out. In reality, it was the community. It was society that allowed us to achieve, because no human, as smart as we are, could still fight off a gorilla. It's the pack. The lone wolf dies, the pack survives, right? And humans are pack creatures. And that's why, to this day, when you do something that is embarrassing, it hurts you in your deep down, because in our survival brain, that's being ostracized from the pack, right? So our brain has, over tens of thousands of years, again, learned that something that raises my status, that makes me higher in the pack, is akin to survival, right? Going back to my very first point, and something that lowers my status, something that's embarrassing. This is why we also don't like people who are liars or cheaters or anything like that. Inherently, right? You get a gut feeling when someone does something sleazy around you. You're just like, I don't like that guy, because you know they can't be trusted in the pack. They can't be trusted that if you do for them, that they will repay you in kind. And that's what human society was built on. So inherently, we have inside of us something that wants to build ourselves up with others and build others up with ourselves. So we can try, there's a very westernized, like, do it, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and, do it all, and entrepreneur and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I mean, that's great. Like, don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, it's you and your pillow. Like, no one, you're born alone, you die alone. So I can understand taking that route, but there is a reality that humans are made to be communal pack creatures. And if we try to go away from that, it's harder. And if we can lean into that, often it becomes easier.
Yeah. Would you say that the live alone, die alone, born alone, that mentality, especially as a social creature, do you think that actually makes sense, or is it a delusion that we do to try and give ourselves justification for dumb shit we do?
I think that it's created by capitalism and the westernized culture that we live in. It is a product of, if you go back to, like, they talk about how the modern school is made to make factory workers, right? Like, get kids to sit in a desk, to listen to rules, and, for 8 hours a day so that they can graduate and go right into a factory. So a lot of what we are taught and what has been fed to us is created. And one of that thing is like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you can do it, and hustle, hustle, hustle. Why? To make more money. Why? To spend more money on the things that you probably don't need. So it's just like, it's kind of been fed to us in a way that I think is just like, it's a false narrative that, we've been made to idolize the Titans, the Rockefeller, the Steve Jobs, this guy, because they're so rich, they're so powerful, they're so whatever. But it's like, the reason we idolize that is because they have more money, and more money in this, we equate to more status, and more status we equate to more survival. It all just kind of feeds back into each other.
All right, there's a lot of things you combined right there that aren't all the same thing. So it's as far as the school systems, or then capitalism, or even if we're supposed to be a pack mentality, or what status and success are. It's a lot of pieces that are all separate things that got mashed together here. So as far as what the stuff would go, there's going to be an issue with the school system, because it does try and create more followers and not more leaders. Fair enough. But most people are followers. They're not leaders. And they don't want to be leaders. That's, also human. That's how humans are also. Like you said, less energy. I want to stay into comfort. I don't want to have to be responsible for all of it. But capitalism in itself is actually pretty damn awesome. It's just the very top, very tippy top that makes it the shitty version. Because, like, most mom and pop shops, or people who have really great intentions or have a good product, are not terrible people and not trying to destroy the economy or ruin the world or be the ultra richest person on earth. They're not trying to do that. So that's not necessarily the problem. I think the problem would be what maybe the people at the very top elites would maybe be your issue or your concern, because who controls the school system? Who's the one who's funding these programs? Who's the one who says this is the curriculum that's allowed to be there? It's not the mom and pop shops. It's not the people who want to start a dream or build a business. So where would the problem be? Is it just the Steve Jobs and the Rockefellers and the top of the charts that we need to worry about? Is that where regulation comes from? Because they wrote the regulations.
Yeah, I think that it's more, I think that, again, I'm not, anti-capitalism, or I think that it's more about, it's just the natural occurrence, right? Like say about great absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So with capitalism, more money is more power. So it's just a natural occurrence, right? If you have a system where more money affords you more power, and that you find a way to get more money that will get you more power, there's going to be people that take advantage of that system. That's just, that's how any system is, right? It would be the same if it was communism or whatever else. There's always going to be people who look to usurp the system because they see an easier route to, saving energy, to getting to the top of the pack. It all comes back to these same survival mechanisms that we've been talking about. People will cheat. There are outliers to, most people are good people. Most people will play within the rules of the game and color within the lines. And yet the reason that we have police and the reason that we have a judicial system is because we know that some people won't. It's not like a flaw in the system. It's just anything that exists will have those people. And that's why, again, we have these natural feelings inside of us where we don't like people like that, right? When you meet someone who is a convicted criminal, regardless of what they are now, it makes you feel some sort of way. It's like, oh, that person broke the rules of society. And I don't really like that. Now, again, everyone has a story, and everyone
hasn't everybody. Hasn't
right,
you just didn't get caught.
For sure. 100%. 100%. I have, for sure. Like I said.
This is where like we get into a judgment system and start evaluating what we believe is good, what we believe is right, what we think is they should be like this, they should be like that. That person's evil, that person is good. That person didn't reform the way I think they should, without any true deep understanding. Again, these judgments are coming from what form of acceptance when truth is really perception again. And so, like, the truth is he's a criminal. It's like, well, aren't we all? We just didn't get caught. Right. Because let's be real. When I was a kid, I stole a bunch of shit and beat up a bunch of people. It wasn't a good guy. And so I just didn't go to jail for it. So who am I to judge?
100%. And I think that, but my point is more that judgment is a natural gut reaction, right? What you do with that, again, like that, I'm just saying, most of the time, this will be the natural human reaction. Now you can look at that and be like, no, because of what I've learned in my life, and because I know I can look at that as, like you said, I know I've probably done worse than that guy. That guy was just in the wrong place at the wrong time and got caught. My point is just that, again, like we have these things that are built into us internally about, like, some people will go outside of the lines of society, and sometimes they get applauded. Right? You read about a hedge fund billionaire who kind of played in the mud a little bit, but they turned out right for them and they became a billionaire. Like, they're applauded by society sometimes, and they don't, right? So all of these things, it's just like, again, everything is like this game theory that, we're all just playing these strange games. And I think that it's just, there is no, like, taking judgment out of it. It was a great way you just phrased it. If we can just look at things for what they are and not be judgmental about it, that's a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. It's the second rule in the Warrior's Way: no blame, no shame, no judgment. It gets in the way of anything that we're trying to actually do. Yeah. So when we're looking at these things, I'd throw a challenge up, and you tell me whether you think this is feasible or crazy. Since you see that, creating these elitisms, creating this hierarchy of status, creating this judgment system that people are all rating each other on, isolating away from the packs and not leaning in towards the strength of each other, and accepting that each of us brings something different, not getting caught up into, like, everything is equal. It's like, no, you have strengths, I have strengths, and together our strengths are better. Like, instead of it being this system of separate, who's the best, you listen to me, I'm the boss, of true, like, understanding and acceptance of the pack and our value to each other. Do you think that practicing unity right now is going to be a lot better? Or are you seeing a lot more of this people who say, like, inclusion is exactly my definition and not truly inclusion because I make the rules? What do you think?
Right. Well, I mean, again, like, yes, I would think that unity in the sense that, like, ideally would be where we want to go. But it's exactly as you said, it's like, who makes the rules? Who decides what quote unquote unity is? And now we get into, and this goes back to what we were kind of talking about before. It's like, we're just asking more questions now. Like, these are complicated. These are the complicated questions, because, again, like, theoretically, more people working together and raising each other up are would be better, right? Like no one's going to say no to that. But then it's like, okay, well, who chooses the ratios with which, or who chooses the projects that we work on, or who chooses X, Y, and Z? And it's like, there's always going to be pitfalls, right? There's always going to be pitfalls to everything. So it's like, now again, does that mean we shouldn't be asking these questions, or we shouldn't be having conversations like that? I don't think so. I think that this is exactly the time to have these type of conversations. I don't know what the answer is. And I think that, this is why it's so complicated, and why it's much easier for someone to just go, I'll turn on Netflix or I'll scroll on TikTok for a while.
Do you think it's complicated because we're not asking the right questions, or we're just not answering the questions we ask?
I think it's complicated because, one, the questions lead to more questions, not answers. And two, some questions are just unanswerable. We talk about what is the meaning of life? What should we be doing? It's like, there's no rule book for this stuff. There is no one answer.
Is anybody trying to answer, or they just go, I don't know, Netflix?
I think a lot of people are trying to answer. I think people have been trying to answer what is the meaning of life since the beginning of time, and we still haven't figured it out, right? Like,
even still, the answers, even if it's correct, is something that's undefinable. Like, let's say the answer is love. Mrs. Einstein, the answer is love, or the Beatles, pick it. So like, love is the answer, and you're like, yeah, but I don't know what love is. So Netflix.
Right. Exactly. Or I love,
or social media.
Right. Exactly. Again, and that's fine, because, everyone is up to, that's why, again, I don't like every side. I don't know if this people are listening or just listening and not watching. Every time I use the word should, I do air quotes, because I don't like that word, because the way things should be is not real. There's only the way things are. Right. So people will talk about like, oh, well, should I be doing this or should I be doing that? It's like, I don't know. Do what you do. And that's it.
I got a fun thing for you, Paul. Here's a should for you. This is what your solved cube should look like. Now, people know the answer. That's what it should look like. It should look like this. If you got your shit worked out, you got health, wealth, love, finances, you've got your friendships, you've got your balance, you've got, your heart side, mind side, spirit side, body side, everything is all in balance. This is what it should look like. This is correct. We know the answer. Mine looks like this shit, though, and it's not doing that. And the only one I got right is health. So I got the health right, but all my other ones fucked. So I don't know how to fix them, and mine isn't doing the answer. So Netflix.
Right.
Like, mine's not doing it. So the issue is we're all trying to solve our own cube on our own without enough information and no unity. You go like, well, what do you think? How did you solve the red side?
Right. Exactly that. Right. And exactly one, using others to, right. Like the wisdom of the crowd, right. Asking for help when we need it. But it's also that, again, trying to make yourself fit into a box that you don't know that you fit into. Right. So when the first thing I tell clients when I work with them, I'm like, this isn't about making you fit into a box. This is about building a container that fits you. And I think that's a very different thing, because most people think that it's supposed to look one way, right? But I think that health, happiness, wealth, whatever it is, looks very different for many people. Some people need $1 million to be wealthy. Some people just need their bills paid, right? So like if we're all looking at the same thing,
$30,000, that'd be good,
right? Exactly. Right. So if you're looking at things like, oh, well, like, I follow X, Y, and Z on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and like they make $500,000 a year, and that's what I'm aspiring to. But like having your bills paid and being able to take your kids to the amusement park twice a year would be like more than enough to make you happy. Now you're putting yourself in this situation where like your happiness is hinging on what someone else said. And again, you've never sat, like you were saying before, to even ask why, right? One of the biggest questions we can ask is like, where do these thoughts come from? Everything that I'm saying, they're just an amalgamation of all the books I've read and the podcasts I've listened to and the conversations that I've had. Very rarely do I have a unique thought of my own. So all of these other thoughts that are bad or that are limiting or that are holding me down, we can just probe into them a little bit. Where does that come from? How do I even think that? Where? Why? When did I start thinking that? And if you start to do that, you can kind of start to unravel it and realize, oh, that was my dad. Oh, that was a teacher who yelled at me when I was in 6th grade and told me that I would never be an artist, or whatever it is. And you start to see like, okay, like it's not a real thing. It's a thought that was given to me by someone else. And just as easy as I picked it up, I can leave it behind.
With training.
No, well, yeah,
I don't think
easy with air quotes too. Yes, because nothing is easy,
Well, simple and easy are not the same thing. Let it go. That's pretty simple.
Right.
Change your belief system. That's simple. hey, just stop your habit. That's
Right,
simple,
right.
but doesn't mean easy.
One
And so
of
the
my,
comparison curses and things like this that
yeah,
come up is like, well, I should be having 500,000 because they do, or
right,
I should have the car like that because they do, or I should have the body like them because they do. Well, where did you get this information? I saw them. I compared myself to
right.
them. I wanted that. Is it a goal or am I just delusional?
Yeah. And
I don't know.
like easier, like one of the things that I like take a lot of gripe with is like the whole like easier said than done, right? You say something like that, well, just leave your habits behind or just change this. And everyone will say like, well, easier said than done. It's like, yeah, everything is easier said than done. It's easier to talk than it is to do. And that's why most people will talk about things and never actually take action. So like inherently everything that we're talking about here is hard. Like I understand when I say like, well, just do this, just get your habits under control, just change your thoughts. Just is a diminishing word. Nothing is that easy. And yet, again, the reality is it doesn't matter how easy it is. If you're going to do it, it's going to be as hard as it is. So it's like, yes, all of these things will come with their own level of challenge. And for different people, they will be differently challenging, right? Some people change it. Some people will.
I would say it's different. Just is a part of your belief system because just makes it easier in your mind. It makes it possible. I had a company I started called Just a Mile a Day. The reason I had the word just on there is to make it so it's not a lot. Because it changes the perception. You know, it's more no different than the Henry Ford quote everyone throws around. If you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way you're right. And if you say a mile is really hard, or if you say it's just a mile, it's still the same distance, but our feelings and our perception about it are different. And so is it really us tricking our mind, or is it really our belief system to make it so possibility becomes possible?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned this earlier, the power of words, right? Like the words that we choose, and that's why, again, why I brought up the should thing before. And you know, words are powerful. If I catch myself saying should, I will stop myself. Like I will literally, like if I say in a conversation with someone, I'll go back and I'll say, actually, no, I didn't. Should I didn't. Right? Oh, I should have done this. Oh no, actually, I chose not to, because that's the difference, right? Oh, I should have implies that, oh, I was going to, but something happened, a fairy came down and knocked it out of my hands or something like that. It's like, no, it was a decision, a conscious decision that I made. And like that, I have to own that. And so the words that we choose are important. I like the just one. That's like super powerful.
Yeah. Well, should also is it's indicative of us thinking that we know. The reality of things is we don't even know what we don't know. This is the idea of like Socrates, even though he was very intelligent, especially in his time, he would start off with saying, with what there is to know, I know that I know nothing. Like, even if there was like, how many forms of bacteria are there? How many bugs are there? How many leaves are in the world? Like, there's so many things that we know we don't know. And it's like, there's billions of things I don't. How many stars are there? We know billions. I don't know. We know, but we don't know, you know? But then how many things are there that I don't even know that I don't even know I know? You know, I don't even know. I don't even know to even ask about what the thing I don't know is, because you can learn about new things. It doesn't matter what it is. You'll be like, I know about these things. They'll be like, hey, did you know there's a sport called roller derby? And you're like, what's that? And you're like, there's people who play football on skates. And you're like, that's badass. I didn't even know about that. How does it work? And now I know a new thing I didn't even know existed, you know, like whatever it may be. And so it's kind of an interesting thing when we use should, when should means I think I know, but it just means, no, I know about 1% of what there is to know, and I have a heavy opinion about it.
I think that but even just saying it like that is powerful, right? You're just you're saying like it's admitting it's being more finite. And I think that is something that a lot of people, we don't like to back ourselves into a corner like that, right? We like to leave outs for things like, it could be, but
we don't like getting caught that we put ourselves in the corner. Right. Because we do it all the time. We just hate when you noticed it.
Very true. Very true.
How you doing on this lunch break? You have some time, or you have to bounce soon?
I got about like 15 more minutes.
Nice. All right, cool. This is fun conversation. I appreciate you for going in a little bit. Most people don't like these talks because you're like, where are we going with this? But I think being able to have the awareness of the decisions that we're making, the belief systems we have, or even what we have as a controllable is oftentimes not put in there. I go heavy into the grief side because our controllables have created our defense systems as our coping mechanisms. You know, whether you're in denial aspect of it, of hide, suppress, run away, you know, or you get into anger, which is attack, or you get into, the depression aspect, which is surrender. I give up. I don't care, whatever, you quit. Or if you even get into bargaining, the fawning aspect of things, which is the negotiator, trying to control the conversation by controlling the conversation. This is stuff that we do as our defenses to try to control everything in life. Even the way that we look at each other, we'll hold ourselves to a certain standard, or we'll act a certain way, or we'll say or do certain things so I can control the way you see me, how you perceive things. This is people wearing their masks. Authenticity is oftentimes misconstrued based on our belief that we're doing something that people like, and that means it's really me, when really you're being what you perceive they would like. These are all control measures. We're controlling everything. In which case, here we are trying to say, you're bad, you're wrong, you should, you shouldn't, you can, you can't, you're lucky, you're not, you're privileged, you're not privileged, you're right, you're wrong, you're left, you're right. And we're just creating judgments on everything instead of going like, you know what? I actually think that we're better together, and together we're stronger. And this is why I lean hard into we're pack animals, dude. You and I teaming up is way better than us doing it all by ourselves. And all of the wisdom and knowledge that you've gathered is useful because you come at a different point than the wisdom and knowledge I've gathered coming from a different point. And now let's just say you've studied for 30 years and I've studied for 30 years. Well, now we're looking at it with 60 years of wisdom. And all the studies that we have were gathered up. You read a book. Look, all right. Everybody throws this around. We just did a training on this one. Don Miguel Ruiz, 4 Agreements. If you haven't started your personal development journey, start here. It's a very, very easy read, and he nails it. And so, very cool read. It's a good book, right? Well, Don Miguel Ruiz wrote this thing. Let's say he's 60 years old when he writes it. Well, now we got 60 years of wisdom that I just got from that book. So now I just advanced my mind. 60 years. Well, now I'm 60 years more intelligent because of that guy's book. And then I read Marcus Aurelius, another 60 years, and he got years off of Epictetus and, all the people that studied with him. He's like, oh man, all this wisdom. So how many books have you read, and how many people have you heard their points of view? And now we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And now you and I are looking together with thousands of years of information. So then are we really stronger together? Oh yeah. Because now we're packing in thousands of conversations that have happened this way, and we're standing on the shoulders of giants. Now we can reach higher. And so this is where I would lean in. We should be focusing more, and I'm using should deliberately. We should be focusing more on each other. We should be a pack animal. We shouldn't be looking at judgments. We shouldn't be putting each other down, breaking the curses for comparison. This is our stuff to make it so we are not doing what you were saying in episode 260. Our path to healing is becoming the judgments that we use to say that other people are going to be right, wrong, good, bad. We're using our healing as a crutch to say that we are now better than you. Wrong. Together, we're stronger. Together, we're better. And if you're focused on anything about you being the elite, you being the one who's I should call the shots, power, greed, selfishness, even if you go the other way with apathy, complacency, complaints, blame, well, we're just fucking up the program because we're supposed to be working together. We're a pack animal. So stop trying to be all alone and think that you're the center of the universe, because together we're way better.
Yeah, couldn't put it better myself. That's exactly it. A rising tide raises all ships, and that a better you makes a better me, a better conversation makes a better everyone listening. A better person listening is a better mom,
and then
dad.
We go sailing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And to me,
it's
motivating.
An honor to hang with you, Paul. Thank
you.
Okay.
I just want to say, to me, that's motivating. When you talk about something like that, the pack together, it's to me, that's why this stuff is important, right? Again, personal development, personal growth, whatever. Again, a guy listening to this who's then going to be a better dad, a better husband, a better brother, a better son is going to make his family better. It's going to make the ripple effect is so great that's why this stuff is important. As airy fairy and weird as it can be to have a conversation for an hour where we didn't actually come to any hard conclusions, it's just having these type of conversations and listening to this type of stuff will make you better, and a better you is better for everyone.
Yeah. And the hard conclusion is that you need to challenge everything. That's what it is. It's also part of the creed in the Warrior's Way is we challenge everything. Ask more questions. Why is a weapon? I've actually seen grown adults lose conversations with 3-year-olds with the word why. You've seen it. Why? Well, because they did this. Why? Well, because they're trying to do that thing. Why? I don't know why. Why don't you know? Like, I don't know why I don't know. Like, I've seen 3-year-olds just dominate conversations. And so, like, why is a weapon? But we need to be able to look at challenge not as an attack, but as a true revolution for ourselves. And this is where I think I would leave us to, like, if you're wondering if you've gotten triggered, or you disagree with Paul, or you disagree with Rick, or you think that we're both a couple idiots because you're smarter than both of us, which is a great judgment, feel free to jump in with us. But I would say there's a quote that I love from Epictetus. This is over 2,000 years old, so I made it PC, that your circumstances do not define you. They reveal you to yourself. And if you've gotten triggered, well, that's where you are in your development. You're the get triggered person. And if you're judging us and you're judging everyone around you and comparing and doing all the things, well, that's who you are. And if you don't tell the truth and you omit and you try to control the situation, you're a liar. And that's okay. That's just where you are. And here we are telling everyone else how to be, but we're never, ever actually doing the reflection of going, where am I and who am I? And if we're doing this, aren't we just failing the pack? We have our jobs. Be the best you by at least taking on a little challenge of, who is that? Where am I and what am I doing? Because then you're a contributor and you're not destroying people by thinking you're better than everyone else and they should be doing it your way. Pretty fun, Paul. I appreciate you. What if they're like, you know what? I like Paul. Who do you work with, Paul, and who are you trying to work with? How do they get to work with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, the number one thing, if people like this, I would just point them to my podcast. I have lots of stuff you can pay for, but there's so much free information. Happy, Healthy Human Podcast, all platforms. Someone wants to dive deeper. People that I like to work with are millennial entrepreneurs or people in the 9-to-5 grind who are looking to start their entrepreneurial journey and wanting that, or needing that little bit of confidence boost of the person that's like, I know I'm meant for more, but I've always held myself back. I've always gone in my own way. And how do I take that first initial step? And that's the type of person that I loved helping the most.
It's fantastic. So check out the podcast, and then can they reach out to you if they're like, I want to work with you? Like, you're fantastic. I love your stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, it's just my name, at Paul Levitin, across all platforms. Super easy to find. DM me anywhere. I have a free newsletter. I have lots of free resources, and then we can talk about coaching or programs as well.
Outstanding. Good job, bro. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for your lunch break. This has been pretty fun. And man, this is an honor, man. So thank you so much for sharing some wisdom and going in and asking some philosophical questions about what is, which is pretty fun to do. So I appreciate your mind very much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for pushing me and not letting me off easy and digging in deep with me too.
You haven't met what I do with my guys yet. Well, I did pull back a little bit. I appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much.
Click on the button and you can become the hero in your own story. It's time to start making the choices to change. And the evolution that you're going to do begins with choosing the next step. This is the way. And together, we're always stronger.